Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Katz, and welcome to Thursday's second half kickoff edition of WeAreSC.com's Inside the Trojans Huddle, where we tell it like it is. Friends, Inside the Trojans Huddle is a game-like panel discussion that is posted on Tuesdays and Thursdays on WeAreSC.com and features WeAreSC columnists, staff writers, and historians. We first start off with the pregame show where we introduce our panel members for this edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle, and then give you the latest USC football news. Let's meet Thursday's panelists. A WeAreSC columnist who writes WeAreSC.com's The Monday Morass, Yay or Nay, and Sunday Takeaways, in addition to regular season football, basketball practice reports. He also hosts his own podcast show entitled Locked On USC. Marc Kulkin, editor-in-chief of WeAreSC.com, a respected columnist, recruiting guru, and a graduate of USC, Erik McKinney. And a weekly WeAreSC columnist who writes Fridays, The Obvious Not So Obvious, IMHO Sunday, and is an active member of the Football Writers Association of America. Your moderator and producer of Inside the Trojans Huddle, Greg Katz. Before we start Thursday's edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle, here's some brief USC news heading into the weekend. The Trojans are moving on from their loss to Utah in the Pac-12 championship and preparing for their confrontation with the Tulane Green Wave, which finished their part of the season with 11-2 record like the Trojans. A major question still out there is the unanswered question on the health status of USC quarterback Caleb Williams, who's been getting treatment for a hamstring pop suffered in the first quarter of the Utah game. Lincoln Riley said on Sunday afternoon the injury to Caleb was significant, and if the Cotton Bowl was to be played in 2 weeks, he would not play. The Trojans opened a slim 2.5-point favorite to defeat Tulane in the Cotton Bowl. And a reminder that on Saturday, we'll find out where the Heisman Trophy is going to go. Is it coming to Heritage Hall? ESPN on Saturday at 5 p.m. Caleb Williams is considered the prime favorite to take home the Trojans' 8th Heisman Trophy winner. And as a courtesy reminder for those of you that are not currently a subscriber member of WeAreSC.com, right now for $10, you can access all the WeAreSC premium stories, analysis, and videos. The current new member deal gives you complete coverage throughout the season, the bowl game, recruiting, spring football, all the way up to next season's WeAreSC.com cycle, which ends on August 31st, 2023. All right, let's kick this thing off here with a series of intriguing questions. We're going to insert a question into our format here. On Saturday, Lincoln Riley will find out whether he's produced yet another Heisman Trophy winner. Panel, yes or no with a brief comment. Do you expect Caleb Williams to be bringing home the Heisman Trophy back to Heritage Hall? We'll start off with Erik. Is it coming back home?
Yes. I think he will probably win by less than I think he should. I think Max Duggan's going to get a kind of a rush of votes maybe at the end, but I think the fact that he also lost his conference championship game helps Caleb Williams there, and I think that we all said it after UCLA Notre Dame that he was the winner. I have no reason to change that thought.
Mark, is the trophy, the hardware coming back to Heritage?
Absolutely. I think Caleb Williams is going to win the West region vote. I think he's going to win the East region vote. I think he's going to win the Southeast region vote. And CJ Stroud will win the Midwest. Erik said, Dugan will get a few votes from the loyal guys down there in Texas. But this is really, it's been Caleb's award since he beat Notre Dame. So even his performance notwithstanding against Utah both times, Caleb himself has had a pretty good game in both losses. So he has enough Heisman moments. It's his award. Like I said, what I would love to see next week when we're watching it on TV is to hear him mention USC's 7th Heisman Trophy winner's name.
All right, fair enough. I think that he's going to get the award. I think that his performance against Utah in the championship game only strengthened it because he came out and he played in obvious pain. He had another Heisman significant run, 59 yards. It was incredible. I think that just his character of playing through that pain of a hamstring, anybody who's ever had one knows how difficult it is to function on it. So I think it did nothing more than solidify. Yes, I think that Dugan will get some votes. I mean, I still don't understand how the quarterback from Georgia, Stetson Bennett, is part of that. I mean, especially if you're going to leave out a Hendon Hooker from Tennessee. It seems to me that's a little bit of a stretch there. But all right, let's move on here. Panel, given the hamstring issue of quarterback Caleb Williams, who figures to be replaced by inexperienced redshirt freshman Miller Moss, and the probability that the Trojans' two best offensive linemen, guard Andrew Voorhees, who was a first-team All Pac-12 selection, and center Brett Nealon, who was a second-team All Pac-12 selection, are probably out. How do you think that this is going to change Lincoln Riley's offense if Miller Moss is quarterbacking? Erik, how much of a change do you expect to see against Tulane?
I think that Miller will probably have fewer plays where he runs around for 19 seconds in the backfield and then ends up picking up 20 yards on a run. Miller Moss he's not a statue, right? He's not Caleb Williams because nobody's Caleb Williams as a runner, where he is quarterback, then running back, then fullback when you try to tackle him. But Miller can run the RPO. He can go zone read a little bit. He can do some of that stuff. I don't think it's some massive where we're running the wing T or something like that against Tulane. The explosive play of the 55, 58, 59 yard run by the quarterback probably out. But no, I don't think it's necessarily like a back to the drawing board type of thing where you're, how do we do this? What do we run on offense here with this guy?
Mark, what do you think? Are you expect to see a different offense or a restricted offense?
I think you'll see a curated version of the offense, but it'll be pretty much the same. I mean, the whole thing with running that RPO, you just want to keep the defense honest, make them respect the fact that, hey, you know what? Caleb can take it on any time, any snap. Miller, if he just takes it, 10% of the time, that's going to catch the defense off guard. So where you only need a few yards, 2 or 3 yards, you might use Miller that way. And he's not a small guy. It's not like he's some small guy who can't take any type of any type of impact. He's a big, strong kid. So he's got the arm. He can throw the ball. Erik said it. Nobody's Caleb Williams. So just run plays that Miller can run extremely well. And then you design a few plays that, you haven't seen all season long. That's what the bowl game is for anyways.
I think it's one of the interesting facets of it is not, to me, how much the offense will change in a way, although I agree with what's been said, is saying what happens if Miller Moss gets hurt? Who comes in? You have to wonder how that would play into the thinking of Lincoln Riley.
Well, Mario Williams lost that opportunity when he could not throw a strike to Caleb.
And I was going to bring that up as a matter of
against Notre Dame.
I think Blake McCree.
Yeah, he played a little, didn't he?
Well, it's food for thought, because I said to myself, now what happens if God forbid that Miller gets knocked out of there.
Well, Jake Jensen, right, has been the number 3. You assume it would go to him. Jordan Addison, when Mario didn't make that throw after that game, he said that he was the backup thrower on that, and he lobbied to get a shot. So yeah, you could get creative with some stuff. I think Jake Jensen would probably be your number 3 going in after Miller, though.
And you have to also wonder with the 2 offensive linemen, Voorhees and Nealon out, how's that going to affect the play calling? Are they going to be able to do what they would want to do, given who they know are taking the spots here?
And Voorhees not officially out yet. I think, again, like Caleb Williams, we're all kind of leaning towards that probably being the case. Brett Nealon, so far at least, is the only guy officially ruled out by Lincoln.
Well, I totally understand where you're coming from. I would be a little surprised if he's going to test that ankle for one game with the NFL draft coming. But, I'm all for if he wants to play, no doubt about that. Panel, do you expect some USC players to opt out of the Cotton Bowl, players that are expected to be taken in the 2023 NFL draft? For those players that might be thinking of putting their name into the transfer portal as well, we do know that someone who has started, Raylan Goforth, is now going into the transfer portal. I assume that means he's not going to play. Who are some of the players that you think could bypass the bowl game to get ready for the draft? Erik, thoughts?
Well, Jordan Addison and Tuli Tuipulotu, right off the top of the head, right? And anyone who really truly believes they can be a first round pick and can go high in that draft, there's not a whole lot of reason to play in these bowl games anymore, just because, again, we've talked a lot about kind of the trend of bowl games, and this is what it is now. If you're healthy, and again, Jordan Addison has dealt with injury issues kind of throughout the year and came back and played well. When he came back, he's got film. Tuli has film. They've got enough stuff right now. It was interesting. Lincoln Riley said during his, the initial Cotton Bowl press conference that they've had discussions with some of the players about that idea. And he said at this point, again, he said Brett Nealon, the only guy so far that we don't think is going to play. He's obviously, I'm sure he would like to have his whole roster as healthy as possible and playing in that game. But yeah, guys like that opt out. Big time potential draft picks don't typically play in non-college football playoff bowl games at the end of the year.
Mark?
Yeah, there's only one other player who I think that might consider not playing him. That's probably Blackman at cornerback, just because senior, again, getting ready for the draft. I think he proved enough at Colorado and making the transition to USC. There's nothing to be gained. And again, you've got some young players on USC that need to be evaluated. Throw them to the fire. It's the time.
I think we'll get a better idea when it gets closer to bowl practice. I think that right now it's a little bit of a calm. You wonder if the players that could go, how much they're going to take into account their particular position, the status of maybe Caleb Williams, especially if you're a wide receiver like Jordan Addison. But I wouldn't rule anybody out. I know what Lincoln Riley says. He's talked with them, and everybody seems to be ready to go. We'll see if they're ready to go when they're ready to go. But we will find out by the time practice starts.
There's some player parent meetings going on this week, so you might hear some more news breaking by this weekend.
Okay. We'll keep an eye on that. All right, panel. We talked about this a little bit on Tuesday. Let's get into it a little bit now. How many USC fans will likely fly back to Dallas to watch and support the Trojans in person when the opponent is the Tulane Green Wave? Erik, give me a number. I know that's hard to do, but are we going to see more than 10,000 fans show up for USC from LA area? What's your thoughts?
No, I don't think that many. I do think there are probably a lot in Texas that will go to the game. It's always fun to see, USC play in that stadium. I don't think there will be a huge flood of people that need to go back to that one. I do want to say, however, before, we're there and you get the top-down shot of just a green AT&T stadium with Tulane fans there, the USC fans should be absolutely commended for what they did in that Pac-12 championship game. Like, Utah fans travel and show up and are loud. USC fans were noticeable in that one. When they did the, back and forth, let's, if you're a Utah fan, make noise. If you're a USC fan, make noise. If it wasn't even, it was USC fans that were louder. And as the game went on, yeah, it sounded a little bit more like Rice Eccles when Utah was making all those big plays. But that to me was a statement that USC fans will go see this team and will support this team as you go forward. I think this one is kind of a fake test, right? We talked on Tuesday about kind of what this game feels like and just sort of the letdown and the opponent and where you end up based on where you could have been. I think USC fans absolutely would have traveled to Atlanta if they had to, or would have been in Arizona for a playoff game. But yeah, whatever you want to set as the number, I'll probably take the under. But I do think there will be a chunk. I don't think there's going to be just player families and 5 USC fans there.
What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be a 2-lane crowd in Dallas. I mean, proximity wise alone, they're going to have the advantage. But Eric just mentioned it. USC fans, they represented themselves really well in Las Vegas, so I guess we got a victory there. Yay, USC! But other than that, we talked about it on Tuesday. From at least my initial reaction was very meh. I want to go. I plan on going, hopefully. But your LA fan, if you get 10,000 traveling, that's going to be a really strong number. It's New Year's, and it's not an inexpensive trip.
No, I've done that trip a number of times. Again, to echo what you guys are saying, I thought the Trojan fans were just magnificent. In fact, I think when they were up 17-3, you could hear a pin drop in the Utah section. And if SC could have applied the pressure and converted on some of the early opportunities they had, they might have shut that crowd up for a good portion of the game. I think my biggest disappointment was there was so much enthusiasm. There was such a great turnout that it's kind of like, this is not the time to take a deep dive here, win this thing. And it wasn't accomplished. And you just have to wonder how much enthusiasm might have been drained from that game. Because honestly, near the end of the game, the SC fans were filing out, and I understood why, but they were certainly there to provide support when it had to be. Panel, let's move on here. Can you recall when a player of Caleb Williams' caliber meant so much to a USC team? What do you think, Eric? In your time of watching USC and following it, did you ever find a player that meant as much as Caleb Williams meant to the 2022 Trojans?
No, I can't think of anyone that sort of single-handedly made plays like that. There's some guys, right? There's some standouts, but yeah, he's that guy. I don't know, and probably why he's going to win the Heisman. I don't think there's anybody in college football that means more to his team than Caleb Williams, and I think it's a big chunk of it is his ability, his play as a quarterback. Not that he doesn't get enough credit for this, but he absolutely deserves every bit of credit he gets as kind of a leader and off the field stuff. And he can come off as sort of aloof. And I know nationally fans of other teams love to crush him. He's sitting by himself. He's doing this, he's doing whatever. This team loves him. These players love him. They will follow him everywhere. He came in and within, 20 minutes of being at USC, had captivated the entire locker room. Shane Lee sort of did the same thing, but he's unbelievable at that. And yeah, as he went, USC went this year. So for me, yeah, it's Caleb.
Mark, the years that you followed USC,
yeah, I think
that meant so much to a USC team.
Caleb probably gets the nod because he doesn't have as much talent surrounding him compared to Reggie Bush. But I mean, you go back to that 2005 season, how many games does USC lose without Reggie? I mean, you can look at the Fresno State game alone. That's probably the closest comparison. But without Caleb this year, USC has more than 2 losses, period. End of story.
Yeah, and I'm going back in my long years of following USC. The one player that I remember that really meant a lot to USC was O.J. Simpson. And I remember the one year that they were supposed to play Cal, and Simpson couldn't play, he had a bad ankle. So they had another running back who was very well known coming out of high school. His name was Steve Grady out of Loyola, LA Loyola. And I think he ran for 125 yards or within that vicinity, give or take. And it showed you that the I formation and and I think Mark mentioned this, what you have surrounding you. But I know how much O.J. Simpson meant in 68, especially when a lot of national championship players from the previous year had graduated on. But I don't think I've seen a player like Caleb Williams mean so much, not only to the offense, but exciting the defense to want to turn the ball over to them. They weren't always successful in doing it, but I think that they played hard to get the ball to the offense because they knew what Caleb Williams could do. So he's definitely going to, by the time he's done at USC, he will definitely have his own legendary following. And you can say, I saw Caleb Williams when I was, 12 years old, and it will still have an impact. So now we're going to move on here to the official lighting of the Inside the Trojans Huddle. There we go. And this is a symbolic tribute to USC's Coliseum home games, where the Olympic torch is ignited between the third and fourth quarters. And we transition to what we call the Big Ten lightning round of 10 rapid fire questions and rapid fire answers. So, panel, here we go. No explanation necessarily, unless you want to provide one. Question one, and we'll go in the order of Erik, Mark, and myself. Question one, yes or no? Did the College Football Playoff Committee get the right Final Four seedings with Georgia 1, Michigan 2, TCU 3, and Ohio State number 4? What do you think, Erik?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Mark?
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. Question two, yes or no? If USC played Utah 10 times, would Utah win at least 6 of those games, Erik?
No.
Mark?
Based on this season, yes.
And I agree with Mark. I think they would. There's nothing to dissuade me from that not happening. Question three, yes or no? Did the Pac-12 championship game performance by Caleb Williams and his warrior attitude help him win the Heisman Trophy? Erik?
It didn't help him lose the Heisman Trophy. He'd already won it. The UCLA and Notre Dame games, plus everything else he did this year, won it for him.
Mark?
To your question, no.
Okay. I don't think it hurt him. So I'm going to say I think it did help him in some ways. So I'm going to say yes. Question four, yes or no? The Trojans have begun selling home jerseys with the last name of current players on the back, like Caleb Williams and number 13. Do you think the time has come to put the last name of players on the back of USC game jerseys? Erik?
No, I like to see him go as long as possible. I think, maybe it's a foregone conclusion that the players demand names on the jerseys, but if I was USC, I'd go as long as possible without doing it.
Mark?
No.
I think it's gonna happen because the players could get money from it. And a lot of players would say, why do I could get money for jerseys at another school. So we'll see how that plays out. Question five, all of the television networks that covered USC games, which network, Fox, ABC, Pac-12 networks, did the best job? Give me the network that you enjoyed watching USC football on. Erik?
They're all the same to me. I watch the game live, and then I don't watch it with sound when I rewatch it.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, I don't get to watch the games on TV. So, oh, look, I hit Fox.
All right, I'm going to say I do watch the replay of all the games because I think I learned a lot by watching it after having been there. But I would say that I liked ABC. I thought the coverage was pretty good. I like Brock Heward, but he's on Fox. But I do like what ABC presented. Question 6, yes or no? When this season is totally completed, will 10 USC players or more enter the transfer portal? Erik?
Yeah, but I'm including next spring ball in this season being over. So this window runs until about mid-January. There's another window that's May 1st to the 15th. So yes, after May 15th, I think at least 10 will be in the transfer portal.
Mark?
Yes.
And I agree. I think there will be 10 USC players or more after the two transfer windows are concluded. Combined, I should say. Question 7, yes or no? Would the Trojans have beaten Utah had Caleb Williams not suffered the hamstring issue in the first quarter? Erik?
Yes, because Utah would not beat USC 6 times out of 10 with Caleb Williams as quarterback.
Okay. Mark?
Yes.
And I say yes, because so much of it changed after that first quarter. But in a fantasy world, if he had been healthy, they would have outscored him, and that could have changed a lot of the complexion of the game. Question 8, yes or no? Will at least 25,000 USC fans show up at the Cotton Bowl for the game against Tulane? And for this question, it doesn't matter if they're from the Dallas area, Los Angeles area. Will at least 25,000 USC fans be in attendance? Erik?
Yeah, exactly that many.
Okay. Mark?
Sure. No, I'm gonna say it'll be lower. 23,478.
Geez, I was only one number off from you, Mark. I think it will be less at this point. We'll see. Question 9, yes or no? Will the loss in the Pac-12 championship game help or hurt USC recruiting? Erik?
Hurts it significantly. That was going to be a huge bump to go to the playoff. It always is. So I don't think it devastates it, but it sure doesn't help it.
All right. What do you think, Mark?
Eyes wide open from the recruits.
Which means no
They're on the fence.
on the fence.
I don't know if it hurts or helps. I've always been of the impression that high school kids don't lock into a singular game to make a decision. It's more of an overall bigger picture. And with the whole transfer portal thing, it's even less of a risk now. You go for a year, you don't like it, you take off.
I think that the loss will not affect recruiting. If anything, they realize that Caleb Williams was hurt. They'll probably see it from whatever viewpoint they want to see it. But I would say overall, I think that's a freebie because of the injury. All right, question 10, agree or disagree? USC is a 2.5-point favorite over Tulane in the Cotton Bowl. What do you think? Erik?
If they are, then I agree with it. I mean, should they be a 2.5-point favorite?
Yeah.
Once we find out if Caleb Williams is in fact not playing in that game, no, it'll move. And so, again, if the assumption is that a few USC's, if 4 of their best players, 5 of their best players don't play in that game, then no, I think Tulane probably ends up being favored.
What do you think, Mark?
Sure. It's fine where it is right now.
And I think it's accurate where it is right now, but it will change depending on what the word is on Caleb Williams. All right, fourth quarter. If you were making a shopping list of potential needs on both sides of the ball, what would be your emphasis, Erik, as they go into recruiting here?
The scale. Anyone who is gigantic. No, I mean that you need, I think, an offensive guard to plug in right behind where Andrew Voorhees is leaving, and then line them up on the defensive front. Just as many as can fit in the bus, and you have room for it.
Mark?
Oh, I am looking at that front 7, and I am scouring the country. I am sending out invitations. You need help up the middle, defensive tackle. You need help at the edge. You need help at linebacker. Just if you play defense and you can breathe, send your resume over to USC.
Yeah, and I agree. I think if I'm making a shopping list, it's definitely offensive line and defensive line. With, of course, checking out the linebacker situation. They're going to need linebackers. But that pretty much, I think, is from my point of view, the biggest needs if they're going to go shopping in the transfer portal. Panel, if the Trojans beat Tulane, how much more of a recruiting advantage will it be given in the early signing window, which of course that probably doesn't affect it because the early signing window will be before the game. But what kind of effect would overall a Tulane, if they beat Tulane, how much will that affect recruiting going into the February signing period? Erik?
Not much. And I think that's where I disagree when you talked about the Utah game not changing recruiting. Going into the playoff was going to give you a month of being front and center in the college football world. That's all anyone talks about between now and then. Every bowl game, it's, hey, let's take a look at the college football playoff teams. And USC was going to get mentioned over and over and over and over. And that's where it would help with recruiting. In terms of the individual game result of the bowl and something like that, that's where I think it doesn't hurt. So again, in the Pac-12 championship game, the fact that you lost that game, I don't think changes things, but that you're not in the playoff changes things. So for the bowl game, no, guys are going to have their minds made up. You're going to be able to pitch whatever you're going to pitch. A win against Tulane is not going to get you a bunch of five-star guys, and a loss is not going to get a bunch of decommitments.
Mark, how big is a win over Tulane in the Cotton Bowl affect recruiting?
It has zero impact. Zero. I mean, if you're trying to get a 3-star off the fence to come to USC, maybe a win over Tulane changes it for him. I don't know. To me, there's no impact. I'm really leaning towards USC is going to be using the portal more than they're recruiting high school kids. I just think that's the direction of college football now. You go get the elite guy, you go get your quarterback, you go get your Zechariah Branch at wide receiver, and then you go get somebody who has a year of experience in the college system, and you fill in your class that way.
The early signing period is like here. I mean, we're a handful of days away, and there is no attention being paid to it at all. Like that's how quickly the transfer portal has taken over recruiting. I mean, this is the first day that the transfer portal window opens. That's now signing day. That's like the biggest recruiting day of the year. And that's not even players committing and stuff. So over the next few months, as transfer portal guys make their decisions and do all that, yeah, I think that's maybe bigger than high school recruiting already.
I mean, you have kids who sign out of high school who jump into the portal before they even get to college. It's free agency. Let's just call it what it is.
Let me ask you guys a question. It's not on my set list here, but were you surprised that Raylan Goforth decided to go into the portal? Erik?
Yeah, it surprised me a little bit. He played quite a bit, and it was clear that he was kind of one play away from playing. I mean, it was he was key. Could you imagine the year without him? Like he didn't have that starting job when they brought in Shane Lee and Eric Gentry, and it was clear that those two guys were kind of going to be your headliners. They're a linebacker, but my goodness, if you didn't have Raylan, because they both dealt with injuries during the year, he was a key piece. But I do understand. I mean, I understand in college football now, especially a guy like that, I want to go try to start somewhere for a full year and really play a lot in the last year. So yeah, at this point, again, last year USC got Caleb Williams and Jordan Addison out of the transfer portal. Anybody can go in. So maybe he's the last guy that surprises me. I don't think I'm going to be surprised by anybody going in.
You think
at any point. You've got multiple year starting quarterbacks that are big time national guys just hopping in and looking for other options.
Do you think that he's not going to be in the bowl game because he announced so quickly?
Yeah, so far Lincoln Riley has not been Clay Helton with that, right? Clay Helton, it was like, yeah, you hang out in the transfer portal as long as you want, doors
Right.
open, come on back in. For Lincoln Riley, it has been, okay, that's the decision. Everyone's moving forward now. That's been the case so far.
Mark, what do you think about Goforth going into the transfer portal so fast?
I'll be honest, I was surprised. You know, it's not like he was being groomed to be the next All-American at USC. I think everybody knew Raylan has his limitations. Not the fastest guy, not the biggest guy. He's solid, but you know, USC needs an upgrade at that position. So whether that's going to be Travion Brown from Washington State, who I guess, you know, possibly pushed Raylan out, I don't know. There's other linebackers in the conference who have already entered the portal as well. I don't think USC is going to have a hard time filling in for Raylan. It was a little surprising, just because he poured so much heart and soul into it. He was a significant contributor. Yeah. He would have probably been the last guy I thought would have jumped into the portal from this team.
Yeah, and he was a starter. I mean, he was a starter. I think he may have information about players on this current team who's actually going to stay. If Shane Lee decides he's going to stay and Eric Gentry decides that he's going to stay, I assume you could still put Eric Gentry out on an edge, and there would be a spot for him. I don't know whether he thinks that Tackett Curtis, once he gets here out of high school, whether he's going to be right in there starting. And again, as you brought up names from other players around the conference, but something triggered him to make that decision in a hurry. But we wish him the best, whatever he does, because he was a good fill-in, and I don't mean that in any disparaging way. They probably he made enough plays to make it worth it for him to be recognized. So we wish him the best of luck if that's the path he's going to go. All right, panel, we're going to switch a little bit here to a general topic. The Rose Bowl finally relented to the college football world and signed a legal letter addressing those concerns and receiving straightforward answers to the current campaigning, which now means that with the Rose Bowl giving its blessing to the playoff committee, the college football playoff committee, that they are going to expand to a 12-team tournament in 2024. Your thoughts on a 12-team expansion in 2024? How will it affect the Trojans entering into the Big Ten? And would you have rather seen an expansion to a 16-team tournament? So, Erik, your thoughts?
8 was always sort of fine with me. I think that you reward the conference champions, and I just think with football especially, like with basketball, you've got 68 in it now, and you certainly don't feel bad for 69, 70, 71, right? Oh, we should have been in. Football, I feel like it's the same thing for 9, 10. That's fine. I don't need you guys in. 12, same thing with 13 through 16. You don't need to be in there, but I always thought it had to be more than 4. If you win your conference as a Power 5, you go in, and then typically there's 2, 3 more teams that probably deserve to be able to play their way in there. So 12, again, it's a lot. I like the first round at the home team sites, and I hope nobody kicks it over to an NFL stadium to host that. I hope those are all on campus. There could be some wild environments, both with weather and with kind of playoff atmosphere at a home stadium. I think it helps the fact that USC is going in to the Big Ten. That's a better conference. I think the way it was set up, going to 12, USC is probably better off being in the Pac-12 with that. If you can win the Pac-12, you're guaranteed in. Even if you come in second in the Pac-12, you're probably guaranteed a spot in there. So in terms of really kind of generating a ton of playoff appearances, I think you'd rather be an Oregon or a Washington staying in the Pac-12. If you're the third team in the Big Ten, I don't think there's a guaranteed spot. You're probably in if you're really good and finish third. But no, that's an interesting part of this in USC going there.
Do you think 16 teams is too many?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like I said, I think 12's too many. I think 8's good.
Okay. Mark?
See, Eric, you're wrong, because if there were 12 teams this year, USC's in the playoff. So 12 is fine. 16 is way too many just to get that out of there. I like moving to 12 teams. Number one, Eric mentioned it. You're going to the Big Ten. You're going to be playing a much stronger schedule. And 11-2, you're coming out of the Big Ten. You're going to the playoffs every single year, whether you're in the conference championship or not. So I'm fine with it. I look forward to it. I wish they were doing it this year or next year. We'll wait till 2024.
Well, I'm personally happy that they've expanded it to 12 teams. I think that all conference champions amongst the 5 major ones should receive automatic bids. And I think that's the way it works, the way it's going to work. I think SC will have a tougher time getting into the playoffs in the Big Ten. I don't think it would have been as tough if they stayed in the Pac-12. So it's could be a little bit of be careful what you wish for. It might come true. I actually would have no problem with a 16-team tournament. It evens it up so that everyone has to play and teams don't get a bye. But I think overall, I can't wait until the playoffs. 12 teams as it be. I think it'll work out fine. I appreciate the Rose Bowl being flexible. It all rode on whether they said, we'll agree with it. We'll amend our contract. And I think for the next 2 years, it's not a problem for the Rose Bowl, but we'll see what happens when the new contract kicks in for the playoffs. Is the Rose Bowl going to play at 2:00 in the afternoon? Are they going to play at 11:00 in the morning? They got the parade. They're not going to, I don't think they want to separate the parade from the game. So
I think it's clear. I think it's clear based on what happened. The Rose Bowl is going to do whatever the Rose Bowl gets told to do. They tried to play tough and they tried to do all this stuff. And at the end of the day, they had to say, okay, whatever you want, we just want to be a part of this. And that they college football playoff kind of, they called them on it, and the Rose Bowl had to be part of this. And so they had to come in. I think your point of the 16-team one and not having teams have buys, again, it's hard to account for all the potential issues, but I could see pretty quickly on that one, a team winning its conference championship game and getting a tougher first round matchup than the team that it lost to, just based on, who you may end up, that team may end up getting the group of 5 team, and the team that won the conference championship gets like an SEC team that just slipped up in its conference championship game. So that's why I think the bye for the top 4 teams is probably pretty good. And I also love that Notre Dame can never be a top 4 team if they don't join a conference.
Well, I think the CFP committee also played hardball with the Rose Bowl, saying if you don't join, you're not going to be part of the process.
It's exactly what happened, and the Rose Bowl eventually had to say, absolutely, yeah, we'll do it. And the CFP, they did say, we'll try to do all the things that you want, right? We understand you want to play at this time on this day with these teams and all that kind of stuff. We'll try to do it. Again, my kids ask me a lot of stuff, and I say, yeah, we'll try to do that, and we never end up doing it.
We'll see.
Yeah. So that absolutely could be coming for the Rose Bowl.
I think as long as the Rose Bowl can get their kickoff time in the early to late afternoon, they'll be fine. Being married to the Pac-10, Pac-12, Big Ten, big whatever they are, that's been gone for years anyway. So I don't even think that was part of the stipulation.
All right. We're in overtime. As you know, all the Pac-12 teams that were eligible are going to bowl games. So what I thought we would do is we would go quickly over them and give an early prediction on the games. Saturday, December 17th, the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl from Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium. Washington State 7-5 overall against Fresno State 9-4 overall. 3:30 p.m. kickoff on ABC. Washington State is a 4.5 point favorite. Erik, who's going to win?
Can you tell me who's going to play? And I'm going to ask you that of all the bowl games. I mean, again, they're impossible to pick. You don't know who's going to play in those games. You don't know who's going to opt out. You don't know who's going to do.
Okay, I got you.
I
But
do
what's the
think.
purpose of it?
I think if everybody's there, Washington State wins. But I think Fresno State fans are going to be there. They're going to show up. They're going to be loud. That's going to be a home game for Fresno State. So 4.5 is not a ton of points. I think Washington State's probably the better team, better defense. So I'll say Washington State, but again, could easily be Fresno State.
Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, exactly what Eric's talking about. I think Washington State's gonna be one of those teams that gets hit hard by the portal. I think they're gonna get.
They already have been. I think 14.
Yeah, so I think I'm leaning to Fresno State right now, just because of that.
Well, I think that that's a good point. Who's going to actually show up? Who's not going to be on the transfer portal? But on the surface of it, I'm going to kind of go with Fresno State on this one, because I think that the flow is starting to show up for Washington State into the transfer portal, and that's not a good thing. All right, Wednesday, December 28th, the San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl at Petco Park. Number 14, Oregon, 9-3 overall, and North Carolina, 9-4 overall, 5 p.m. On Fox. North Carolina is favored by 9.5 points. Erik, who's going to win it?
It's another tough one. So Oregon has said Bo Nix is going to play, and so I'll go with Oregon. I could see them getting hit by the transfer portal and having guys opt out there. But I'll say Oregon in that one. North Carolina had a chance to kind of rise up against Clemson and just fell apart.
Mark?
Yeah, I'm going to stick to my guns here. I'm going with North Carolina. I think Mac Brown is a better coach than Dan Lanning. Oregon is replacing their offensive coordinator. Again, you got the whole Bo Nix thing. You got players leaving on both sides of the ball. That's another team that's going to get hit hard by the portal is Oregon. So I think they're a team in turmoil right now, to be honest with you. I'm going to go with North Carolina, despite how poorly they played against Clemson.
I'm going to go with North Carolina for all the reasons that Mark gave. I got a lot of respect for Mac Brown. I think Oregon is in turmoil, and I think the worst is yet to come. So I am going to say that North Carolina is going to take that one. All right, Thursday, December 29th, the Valero Alamo Bowl in San Antonio, Texas. Number 12, Washington, 12-2 overall against number 20, Texas, 8-4 overall. 6 p.m. By the way, these times are Pacific times, by the way.
Wait, how does Washington played 14 games already?
I don't know.
What did I miss?
Texas is favored by 3.5 points. Who's going to win it, Erik?
Washington, and I think fairly comfortably. That's a team kind of on a mission right now, and I can see Texas losing guys to the transfer portal, and I could see them just kind of falling apart a little bit. So would not be a surprise to me if that's Washington by quite a bit. Mark? Washington is 10-2 this year.
Thank you. I was like, wait a second here. Did they play Hawaii a couple times?
All right, Texas favored by 3.5 points. Mark, what do you think?
I got Washington. I am just Coach Sark. I got Washington.
Well, it is being played in Texas, so there's
Bijan won't be playing in that game either. I got Washington winning.
And it's being played in Texas, but are a bunch of Texas fans going to El Paso for that one? I mean, probably more than Washington, but no, Penix is he's not a Heisman finalist, and he's going to go out there and try to put on a show. He's already announced he's coming back for next year. I think that the receivers and all that are going to be there to support him and kind of launch 2023.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Washington as well. I think that this is right up Sark's alley to lose, and I think he will do that. All right, Friday, December 30th, Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl in El Paso, Texas. Number 18, UCLA 9-3 overall against Pitt, 8-4 overall, 11 a.m. on CBS. UCLA is favored by 3.5 points. Eric, the winner is?
Yeah, I just realized I looked at that wrong, and that this is the game in El Paso. The other one's in San Antonio. It's probably fine to leave it. It's whatever. Anyway, Pitt doesn't have a quarterback. Keaton Slovis went into the transfer portal, and I would assume that Dorian Thompson-Robinson is going to play in his 150th game for UCLA in this one. So, I'll take UCLA. It would not surprise me if they just completely no-showed, like we can expect from them sometimes. But no, I don't know. I did not study Pitt's backup quarterback situation all that much this year, but I imagine it's not ideal to have to be going to that for a bowl game.
Mark?
Yeah, I'll go UCLA just because Keaton Slovis decided he didn't want to play against the Bruins one more time.
I'm going with UCLA. I think they'll be together. I think they'll play hard, and I think Pitt has some question marks. Monday, January 2nd, 2023, the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. Number 8, Utah against number 11, Penn State. Penn State, that game's going to be on at 2 p.m. on ESPN overall. Penn State is a 1.5 point favorite. Eric, who do you think?
I think Utah's going to win that. I think those fans are going to travel, even though it's the second year in a row that they've been out here. Unlike the Ohio State fans, the Utah fans will go ahead and be okay with going to the Rose Bowl. And they are charged up right now. I think Penn State's a fine team. I think James Franklin probably, again, all I know of him in the Rose Bowl is that he actively tries to lose the game for his team. So that's what I'll guess.
Whoa. I'm not disagreeing with you, by the way. Mark?
Yeah, Utah plays with that chip on their shoulder. Cam Rising, if he wasn't on the Utah team, I would love for him to be on USC's team. I love his personality, his attitude, I don't give a flying F type of, let's just play football type of attitude. I like Utah on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Utah too. I think Utah really knows what it's all about. I think they really have improved a lot since the USC game. And I think they showed what they're all about when they played in the Pac-12 championship game. All right, Monday, January 2nd, the Goodyear Cotton Bowl in AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Number 10, USC, 11-2 overall, and number 16, Tulane, 11-2, 10 a.m. ESPN. USC is favored by 2.5 points. Eric, who's going to win?
I'm not going to pick against USC, so I'm just going to say that Tulane will cover the spread.
Okay. Mark?
So that's 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time?
Correct.
Yeah, Tulane. USC won't be awake.
Well, they should be out there for a few days ahead of that to get used to it. But
I don't like picking against USC
throughout time.
However, this isn't the game they wanted to be in. It's an early.
I mean, right? All signs are pointing to Tulane.
And we've gone over it. No Caleb, more than likely. Transfer portal ramifications. Let's just get through the bowl game.
All right, I'm going to go with USC on this one. Even if Miller Moss is quarterbacking, I think he'll do a nice job. I'm more concerned about the offensive line, but I think that Lincoln Riley will come through with some ideas on how to neutralize it. They've got to keep the ball away from Tulane's offense. I will tell you that. Tulane's offense can score points. And now for our early bowl prediction for the Georgia Southern Eagles, who by winning 6 games became bowl eligible. Gentleman Clay, his Georgia Southern 6-6 team, have accepted a bowl invitation to play in the Camellia Bowl game against mighty Buffalo, 6-6 on the season, on Tuesday, December 27th. And that game will be played in the famous Crampton Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama at 9 a.m. Pacific time on ESPN. Georgia Southern is a 4.5-point favorite. Erik, what's going to happen? Who wins it?
Georgia Southern.
Georgia Southern. Mark?
Okay. Yes, I got Clay Helton winning this game.
Clay Helton. All right. I think Clay is going to come through, but there is that Helton factor. But I think he'll come through. So with that in mind, that'll do it for Thursday's edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle. Reminder, next Tuesday, we'll analyze and discuss USC status for the Cotton Bowl, look at the NCAA transfer portal, which is open. Who's coming, who's going, could be some surprises, who knows. Until then, a big thank you again to our panelists, Marc Kulkin and Erik McKinney. And a special thank you to all of you for watching or listening to Inside the Trojans Huddle. Have yourself a great weekend. Go Trojans. Until next Tuesday, this is your moderator, Greg Katz, saying, fight on, everybody.